sour cream, mayonnaise, calcium disodium EDTA, spinach, onion, monosodium glutamate, dehydrated onion, partially hydrogenated cottonseed and or soybean oil, potassium sorbate, sodium benzoate, autolyzed yeast extract, chicken powder, whey protein powder, mechanically separated turkey, sodium tripolyphosphate, citric acid, modified cornstarch, peas, chicken fat, wheat flour, soybean oil, sodium sterolactylate. The list really goes on. And then you have unassuming things like BHT and EDTA, which seem like they can't be that bad. But if you actually wrote the name out, it goes a little something like ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, or BHT, butylated hydroxytoluene, or TBHQ, tertiary butyl hydroquinone. There's tons of chemicals in our food, and in this video, I want to just talk about some of the general differences between natural and chemical and what that means to our health. Most of the time when a food or chemical is processed, it's processed toward the means of that food having a longer shelf life, that food tasting really good or setting off a lot of positive hormones in your body so that you get a positive response when you eat that food, even addictive or habit-forming things. The point is that if a food manufacturer is processing a food, they want you to buy that food. They're not processing it to make it healthier for you. They're processing it to make you more likely to buy that food again and again and again and again. Usually people don't process foods to make them healthier because the foods are the healthiest when they're just natural. So if you're getting things that are processed, just know that it's being processed towards the goal of you buying more of that food, eating more of that food, and not towards making that food healthier for you and your family. The first thing to know about natural foods is that they naturally contain all of the different components that your body needs to use and digest that food. So for example, a whole grain. A whole grain naturally contains all of the fiber, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, enzymes that your body needs to digest that grain and then use it for energy throughout your body. Once you start enriching the grain or taking pieces of the grain out, then suddenly you can have problems digesting that grain because it simply doesn't contain all of the components that your body needs to use. Things that are natural have been around a lot longer than things that are man-made. And so we know that animals need food to survive, people need food to survive, and we know for a fact that we can survive and thrive on a natural diet. It's what we did for most of our existence before there were chemicals and before there was the industrialization of food. Our bodies naturally know how to deal with natural foods. Not only have we evolved eating those foods for a really long time, but the foods also contain the things that we need to digest them. When we're talking about chemicals that we ingest, either by putting them on our skin or by actually eating them in food, we have to realize that our body has to undo all of the chemical processing that was done to that chemical before we ate it. So in order to get that down into a group of molecules that your body can use and handle, your body has to do a lot of work undoing all those chemical processes. So for something like EDTA, ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, that's a whole lot of chemical reactions your body's having to do. So if you're eating a lot of chemically laden foods, there's a chance that your body's actually spending more energy just to digest the foods you're eating than you're getting from the foods that you're eating. Another thing to know is that if we ingest something that our bodies don't know how to deal with, our body is just going to sequester that chemical somewhere in the body, usually a fat deposit like in the gut or even in the breasts. And so we actually have instances where chemicals, there's actually one chemical in particular called parabens, where they've actually found huge concentrations of parabens in breast cancer lump tissue. Now, I'm not trying there's a lot of controversy out there about whether parabens are causing cancer or whatever, but the point is that if you are ingesting things that your body doesn't know how to break down and doesn't know how to excrete, your body's going to hold on to those things, and all of those effects of that chemical are going to remain in your body pretty much indefinitely. While many of the different chemicals out there have been found to be carcinogenic or toxic, neurotoxic, etc., it's important for us to realize that there are so many chemicals and so many new chemicals being created every single day that there really isn't any possible way for them to test every single chemical. And especially in the case of cosmetics, most of those chemicals aren't tested at all. So we're in a situation where we're kind of the guinea pigs, and they aren't able to do all of the testing to see what the long-term effects are or what the effects of combining different chemicals are. So aside from knowing that some chemicals are bad and, some they haven't researched on, you should just know that in general there's way too many chemicals for them to actually test, and if we can avoid them altogether, we are a little bit more precautionary. The safety tests that they do on these different chemicals also kind of assume that every person has the same exposure to that chemical. And that is just really something that they cannot safely assume, because everyone consumes different amounts of different products. And a lot of these chemicals are used in a lot of different products. So if you were just getting the BHT out of that turkey pot pie, and that was the only BHT that you were exposed to, maybe it would never hurt you. But if there's BHT in every single food that you're eating, and if you actually start looking over and reading the labels, you'll see BHT in everything from chewing gum to soda pop to you name it, then the amount of exposure to BHT that you're getting is something really hard for anybody to nail down. And if there's this cumulative exposure from all the different things that have parabens in them or all the different things that have EDTA in them, then creating a safe amount or a safe amount of exposure is also kind of impossible. Many chemicals are actually known to mimic or act like other chemicals and hormones in our bodies. So paraben, the chemical I mentioned earlier, is known to mimic estrogen, which means that if there's parabens floating around in your body, a paraben can actually attach to an estrogen receptor, and you end up with a situation that's maybe similar to like putting water in your gas tank. So the tank fills up, you turn the car on, the car tries to turn on, the water is mimicking gasoline, but when the car actually tries to run, it's not going to be able to do it at all because it's water and not gasoline. So there's a lot of different problems with chemicals mimicking our hormones or mimicking other chemicals. But one of the main things is just to realize that if you've got a chemical mimicking something in your body, then a lot of functions in your body are not going to work the way that they're supposed to. Another consideration is that the FDA and the FD&C, which is the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Agency, aren't actually the ones doing the safety testing on the products. We're actually in a situation where the manufacturer is required to prove the safety of the products they're selling. So you kind of get this conflict of interest arising where you have a product you want to sell, you're in charge of proving that it's safe, and you don't really have anyone double checking your work to make sure that your work is correct. So it's important for us to recognize that while the FDA and FD&C are out there trying to protect us, their control is actually somewhat limited. And for the most part, manufacturers are left to their own devices in terms of what chemicals they put in our bodies. So based on all that information, here are my 3 quick recommendations for improving your health right now. Number 1, just get in the habit of briefly turning something over, and you don't have to read the whole label. You don't have to know what every one of those things is. But the longer the label is, in general, the worse that food is. The best option is going to opt for something that has a very short list. It's all actual words, actual things that you know that they are, like peanuts, salt, right? Things that you recognize, and avoid a really long ingredient list. The second thing is to opt for whole foods that don't have an ingredient list at all, like apples, oranges, limes, pears, things like that. You know that is a natural food. You know your body is going to get the utmost nutrition out of eating that food, and it doesn't have any excess crap that you don't need. The third thing is to start trying to get in the habit of cooking at home. And maybe you just start with once a week or once a month. If you're someone who never cooks, just start with once a month. And just know that when you are buying the ingredients and making them in your home, that's the best way to avoid all of the weird extra chemicals that you're going to find in processed foods, in microwave dinners, in fast foods. And even though a lot of the foods that we buy at the grocery store are processed as well, that'll be a great step in starting to avoid a lot of those really harmful chemicals. In future videos, I'm going to talk in more detail about what some of these chemicals are and what some of our most favorite foods actually contain in terms of chemicals. So please subscribe to our channel. We post a new video every day, so we hope that you will tune in and come back to watch more videos with us. If this was interesting to you, please share it with your friends or post it on your Facebook. Be sure to give me a thumbs up if you liked the video. Leave me a comment with any questions or topic requests, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. If you would like to learn what the top 10 obesity-causing foods are, then you can click on my video right over here. And if you'd like to learn about what's the difference between whole foods and processed foods, you can click right here. And if you're interested in figuring out why junk foods are so bad for you and how junk foods are actually designed to make you fat and make you feel addicted to the foods, you can watch this video down here. And if you've ever wondered what happiness has to do with boob jobs, you can click right here.